Okay, let me ask you something. What if finance wasn't just about, debt? What if it was about owning a real, tangible piece of something? Yeah, imagine an investment that's less like a simple IOU and a lot more like a title deed to a property. Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today with one of Islamic finance's most fascinating structures, the Sukuk al-Ijarah.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about the core idea, financing with actual physical assets. Then we'll meet all the key players involved. After that, we'll walk through exactly how the most common model works, step by step. And from there, we'll follow the money trail, look at a really clever variation, and wrap it all up by talking about the big picture, why this whole thing really matters.
All right, so let's get right to the heart of it. The number one thing you've got to understand from the get-go is this. A Sukuk al-Ijarah has to be tied to a real-world, tangible asset. I mean, we're talking about actual buildings, heavy equipment, airplanes, stuff you can literally see and touch. This is what makes it so different from a regular bond. A bond is just a promise to pay back money, right? It's a debt. But here, your investment is directly hooked into the value and the real-world use of a physical thing.
So how does all of this actually work in practice? Well, to get it, you first have to meet the cast of characters. See, every one of these transactions has a few essential players, and each of them has a really specific job to do to make the whole thing click.
First up, you've got the originator. This is the company, or maybe even a government, that gets the whole ball rolling. They've got two things: a valuable asset that they own, and, you guessed it, a need for cash. And what's interesting is that they're not just selling the asset, they're also going to be the one using it in the end. Keep that in mind.
Okay, next we have something called the Special Purpose Vehicle, or SPV for short. Now, this one is a super crucial piece of the puzzle. The easiest way to think of it is like a totally transparent legal lockbox. It's a separate company set up for just one job: to buy the asset from the originator and hold on to it safely for the investors. That separation is absolutely key to making sure everyone's protected.
And finally, of course, we have the Sukukholders. These are your investors. It could be anyone: individuals, big investment funds, banks, anyone who puts up the cash by buying the Sukuk certificates. But here's the kicker. They're not just lenders. That's not what's happening. By buying these certificates, they actually become part owners of that real asset sitting inside the SPV.
All right, so we've met the whole team. Now for the fun part. Let's see how they all work together. We're going to walk through the most common structure you'll see out there, which is called the sale and leaseback model. This is really the engine room of the whole deal. Okay, let's break this down step by step. First, investors buy the Sukuk certificates, and all that money gets pooled into the SPV. Simple enough. Step 2, the SPV takes that cash and uses it to buy the asset from the originator. Bam! The originator now has the capital it needed. Step 3, and this happens right away, the SPV leases that exact same asset right back to the originator because, hey, they still need it to run their business. Then, for step 4, the originator makes regular payments, but remember, it's not interest, it's rent for using the asset. And finally, step 5, when the whole thing matures, the originator buys the asset back from the SPV. The circle is complete.
And this is the aha moment right here. If you only remember one thing, make it this. The regular payments the investors get, that's just rent. And that big final payment at the end, that's the sale price of the asset. The investors' returns are coming from the profits of renting out a real asset they co-own, not from interest on a loan. It's a completely different mindset.
Okay, so we've tracked the journey of the physical asset. Now let's switch gears and follow the money. Because understanding exactly how the cash flows is the key to seeing how this whole thing works for everyone involved.
It all kicks off right here. The investors put in the initial cash, the subscription money, and it all gets collected inside that neutral lockbox, the SPV.
Then, boom. The SPV immediately sends that pile of money over to the originator. In exchange, it gets the legal title to the asset. This is the moment the originator gets that big injection of capital it needed.
All right, now the regular income starts flowing. The originator, who's now renting the asset, pays that rent to the SPV. But the SPV doesn't just sit on the money. Its whole job is to be a pass-through, so it sends those rental payments straight on to the investors. That's their profit.
And to wrap it all up, at the very end of the term, the originator pays that pre-agreed price to buy the asset back. And just like before, the SPV acts as that pass-through, using the money to return the investor's original investment back to them. And that's a wrap.
Okay, that whole sale and leaseback model works perfectly if you have an asset you can actually sell. But what happens when you can't?
I mean, what if a government wants to raise money using, say, a famous public building, but the law says you can't just sell it? Well, Islamic finance has a really clever workaround for this.
So check this out. Instead of selling the actual asset, the originator sells the right to use the asset, sometimes called the usufruct, to the SPV for a long time. The SPV now holds that right, and what does it do? It simply subleases that right back to the originator. The end result is that the cash flows look pretty much identical to the other model, but the entire deal is built on the benefit of the asset, not its legal title. It's a super flexible approach that opens up a lot more possibilities.
Okay, so we've been deep in the mechanics, right? The players, the steps, the money flows, but now let's zoom out and ask the really big question. So what? Why does any of this matter? What's the real impact of structuring finance this way? Look, the most important takeaway here is that this isn't just clever financial engineering for its own sake. It creates a real, tangible link between the world of finance and the actual productive economy. You're not just trading slips of paper representing debt. Instead, everyone involved, the originator, the investors, they all have a stake in a real physical asset, and that connection to something real can bring a lot more stability. It grounds the investment's value in the real world. Plus, the whole structure is just incredibly transparent. You know exactly what asset you want a piece of, and you can see exactly where the money is going.
And it really leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it? In a world that's always looking for more stability, could this idea, the idea of connecting our investments directly to real, tangible assets, be a glimpse into the future of finance? It's a powerful thought to end on, and it makes you wonder where we're all headed.